Well, I mentioned at the top of the show that Victorian Deputy Opposition Leader Sam Groth has announced his intention to quit politics at the end of this term. Groth hit out at what he called internal opposition as the reason for his decision. It's sure to reignite tensions within the Victorian Liberal Party in what is a do-or-die year. And here to talk us through it, Victorian political editor at The Australian, Anthony Galloway. Anthony, good evening to you. The Deputy Leader said politics had taken a toll on him and his family. He's only been in politics since 2022. What did you make of that?
Yeah, great to be with you. Well, perhaps it's best to take you back to the events of last year. Sam Groth, as you said, was elected in 2022 and had this kind of meteoric rise in the party. He was Deputy Leader, but it was well known he was under intense personal pressure last year. He was suing a newspaper after a series of articles that questioned the age of his wife when they first got together. But that matter was actually eventually settled in November last year, and the newspaper apologised. And that actually happened days before this big Liberal leadership spill in which Jess Wilson successfully challenged Brad Batten. But as part of that, Mr Groth also faced a challenge, and he had to recontest his position against another frontbencher, David Southwick, and Groth decided to put his hand up again and actually resoundingly beat Southwick back on November 18th, and then has been serving under Jess Wilson as Deputy Leader again. And everyone kind of thought, that kind of instability, that matter was settled. No one saw today coming, including Jess Wilson. Mr Groth contacted her in recent days to catch up for a coffee. The meeting occurred at 8:30 a.m. this morning, in which he informed her she was standing down and kind of referenced this statement, quite an explosive statement in which he hit out at colleagues, which he said he had to fight against for large periods of his term in Parliament. And then shortly, minutes after this meeting concluded, he sent out this statement at 9:15 this morning.
You mentioned that he was re-elected Deputy Leader only 48 days ago. So I guess my question is, what happened between November 18, when he was re-elected to that position, and today?
That's what a lot of his colleagues are questioning today and are really a bit angry at him about. No one would have begrudged him back on November 18 last year, less than 2 months ago, for saying, you know what, I've been through this kind of intense period of personal struggle, and I'm just going to either take some time out, or I am in fact leaving state parliament. But to put your hand up again after the Victorian Liberals have been through so much internal turmoil in recent years, and then less than 2 months later bow out, I think that's caused fresh divisions today. The other issue is he seems to have not accepted that he actually, by convention, needs to resign pretty soon, his position on the front bench, so that it can be a fresh ballot for the Deputy Liberal leadership. That there seems to be some kind of disagreement between him and Jess Wilson on that matter, but Jess Wilson was quite conclusive in her press conference today. When I asked her, does there need to be a new Deputy Leader soon, she said yes.
As I said earlier, the Victorian Liberals' ability to punch themselves in the face is, well, it's almost admirable. How does this affect the Liberal chances come November? Because Jess Wilson, I mean, she was doing quite well in the polls, making up ground. How much does this set them back?
I think it's too early to say, but the worry for Jess Wilson would be it's yet another sign to voters of the instability of the past. And I think a lot of people outside of Victoria don't quite understand why Victorian Labor has been so successful despite the government's many struggles, which have been well litigated. And it's because the Victorian Liberals have been such a rabble that they've gone through this 2 terms of utter instability and infighting. And as you say, with Jess Wilson, there were signs that was all in the past, and I think events like today are perhaps another reminder to voters that they might not be a credible alternative, because that is really the big test for Wilson. She needs to... all the polling showing that Jacinta Allen is a terribly unpopular premier who's kind of running a tired 12-year-old government. But in politics, voters will always go with the devil they know. And the polling's also showing voters just aren't quite there yet on whether the Liberals are a viable alternative.
It's just absolutely incredible. For those of us looking from afar into Victoria, it's just quite difficult to believe Labor could win another term. Just before I let you go, Anthony, a former Liberal opposition leader, another former Liberal opposition leader, John Pesutto, he wrote a pretty scathing piece over the weekend suggesting the $34 billion cost of Melbourne's suburban rail link could be far higher, as much as $100 billion. Is he right? And will not the issue of debt play into how voters cast their ballots come November? Or are Victorians still sort of somehow immune to the economic catastrophe that's facing their state under Labor?
Yeah, well, on the suburban rail loop question, I mean, doubts about that cost estimate of $35 billion aren't really a party political position, and just about every infrastructure transport expert I've spoken to has raised serious doubts. Infrastructure Australia have huge doubts that they've previously put on the record about the government's business case, which is really because the government in its business case was combining the first stage and the second stage of SRL together, when in fact they're building SRL East, the first stage, and letting that run for quite a period of years. And Infrastructure Australia is not convinced that the benefits or the costs quite stack up according to the government's business case. Despite this, Anthony Albanese has guaranteed around $10 billion, around a third of the project cost for the project. And sorry, just on
incredible.
Just on whether debt, on whether debt can be an issue at the election. Jess Wilson has done a lot to kind of try and raise that issue. Brad Batten was really just solely focusing on crime, the crime crisis in Victoria. Jess Wilson's been focusing on debt, really not focusing on the total figures as much, but trying to explain to voters the consequences of the rising debt, which is going to hit nearly $200 billion.
That's certainly what she's going to have to...
the consequences...
She's certainly going to have to focus on that if she's going to win the election at November. Sorry to cut you off. We've got to go to a break, but I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.